Summer routines live or die by how easy they are, and honestly, if something takes too much effort, I'm out. That's why Groons is my go-to. It's my one daily pack of gummies covering my greens, vitamins, and minerals. Plus, it has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber, which is more than 2 cups of broccoli. No mixing powders, no giant pills, no hassle. I just rip open the pack and I'm done. They taste good and they make it easy to stay on top of my health, even when life gets busy. Save up to 52% with the code PODCAST at Groons.co. That's code PODCAST at GRUNS.co.
Hi, it's Jamie, Progressive's Employee of the Month, 2 months in a row. Leave a message at the... Hi, Jamie. It's me, Jamie. I just had a new idea for our song about the Name Your Price tool. So when it's like, tell us what you want to pay, hey, 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 and the trombone goes, blah, 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 and you say, we'll help you find coverage options to fit your budget. Then we just all do finger snaps while a choir goes, savings coming at ya, savings coming at ya. Yes? No? Maybe? Anyway, see your practice tonight. I got new lyrics for the rap break.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Welcome back to TalkNorth.com. Thank you for listening. If you can, please download before you listen. It helps our business. I'd also like to thank our producer, Brandon Morton, and let you know if you'd like to sponsor this program or any of the programs on the network, you can reach me at jsouhan47@gmail.com. We thought we'd try something new on this Russo-Souhan show. Now that we've done like 8,000 shows together, we got to keep things fresh. I thought we'd talk to Michael Russo about Trampled by Turtles.
Yeah. I'm out in Colorado. Got to go to my 4th Red Rock show, seeing Trampled there the other day, and it was absolutely awesome. Every time they play there, it's like the perfect place for them too, because you're playing in front of 9,000 people in the middle of the mountains. Perfect night. And it gives them a kind of a venue where they could show off musically. And if you ever seen Trampled by Turtles live, when they jam, it's just absolutely awesome to listen to. And they showed off the other day. It was one of the best Trampled shows that I've seen. And then again, hanging out backstage with them is always pretty special after a show like that. And then last night I didn't go, but they played at Estes Park at the Stanley Hotel, which from The Shining. And it's it's just to go from Red Rocks to all of a sudden this
to Red Rum
theater. Yeah. All of a sudden this small little theater. It would have been awesome to see the contrast yesterday, and that's the cool part about any time the Trampled tours is that you're one day you'll see them in front of thousands, next day you might see them in a theater in front of hundreds or a couple thousand, and they can play any venue. Awesome. So I'm looking forward. I'm going to see them a couple more times on this tour. Next month they play with the Avett Brothers down in southern Minnesota, and then they have 3 shows in Minnesota in November, and the Wild are in town for 2 of them. So I'll probably go to a couple of those.
On my way, I'm in Chicago just for a fun weekend. We're going to go see Hamilton down here, and on the way down, I'm interested in the Trampled by Turtles. Their artist's view of Springsteen's Seeger Sessions band and the live concert he did, because I watched that on the way down. It was just phenomenal. It's just kind of old. It's not exactly like Trampled by Turtles music, but it's kind of old Americana, big band, Dixieland mashup, and I'd be interested to see if they like that, because I find it to be fascinating stuff. But on to hockey. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, they are musical, nerds. I mean, they're fans like everybody else, and it's cool just sitting backstage talking about music. I know they absolutely love Chris from the Star Tribune. Follow him. I see all the times that he's posting live snippets from concerts, and they're liking it and reading it and all that stuff. So it's just been again, to see him in that venue again the other day, it's just to me it should be, if you haven't been to Red Rocks, to get on that bucket list. It's pretty. You got to go out and make your way out to Morrison, Colorado.
Yeah, I got to do that. I got to take my wife out there. And by the way, Chris Schriemann-Snyder, one of our music critics at the Star Tribune, does a great job. So follow him if you get a chance. All right, this is the Russo-Souhan Show, part of the TalkNorth.com podcast network. Thanks to Twill in the Edina Galleria, Fixologyrepair.com, Tony Hoagland, your State Farm agent in Champlin, BiteSquad.com, and Tin Shed. Our next live show is July 31st at 7 p.m., and soon we're going to be putting out our schedule for live shows in August. July 31st, 7 p.m., massive crowd last time we did a show. It was a blast. There's plenty of seating, so you don't have to worry about that. There's plenty of seating. It's just a really laid-back, good atmosphere, good food, good drink, free parking, all that cool stuff. Come out and see us, 7 o'clock, July 31st. What hockey topic do you want to start with?
Really nothing's happened since our podcast last week. So, I think today's probably a good opportunity to do Twitter questions. It is funny, though. As I mentioned, I'm out in Colorado, and I'm up in Breckenridge right now, which is one of my favorite places. I always try to make a couple days stop here when I have a couple extra days in Colorado. And I'm walking along, and I went to this place called Cecilia's last night, which is kind of this. It's an awesome place. It's kind of like it turns into a nightclub on weekends, but during the week, it's really this kind of like chill bar that you can also smoke cigars outside. So I'm sitting outside with my buddy last night, and just the locals here in Colorado, they're all from everywhere else, and it seems like everybody here has originally worked or is from Minnesota. And so last night we're sitting there, within an hour, like 3 or 4 different Minnesotans just came and sat with us and just started talking hockey. And it was pretty neat being kind of in this neck of the woods and getting their feelings on the Wild, their feelings. A couple of them are Penguins fans. A couple of them have adopted the Blues. A lot of people have seem to be kind of letting their Wild fandom, since they've moved out to Colorado, go. But it was pretty neat last night, just kind of chatting hockey and with some of the locals here.
One of the coolest trips I ever did at the Star Tribune was when Red McCombs bought the Vikings. I had been down to San Antonio to visit him and do stories on him. And, he was trying to kiss up to the local reporter because he knew he was about to get the Vikings. But so he was a great host. And then when he bought the team, I talked him into letting me and Jeff Wheeler get on his private plane as he went out to his retreat in, I think it was Durango, Colorado, just a place up in the mountains. Just, my God, it's stunningly beautiful out there. So we just basically hung out in Durango, Colorado, and lived in his guest house for a couple of days and and worked on stories. I'm like, as Jeff said, man, we fell into some sweet smelling stuff here. Is the way he put it.
Well, you definitely find that in Colorado. In fact, at the cigar bar that I was at last night, there's a marijuana leaf picture on the window with a cross through it to let you know you can only have tobacco products outside, where we were sitting. So I just thought that was pretty funny. It's not something you can see everywhere else. But it is funny, that you just reminded me. So back in the day, the Panthers used to have training camp out in Val for like 4 or 5 days. And so we'd come up here, and the owner of the Panthers at the time was a guy named Alan Cohen, and he had a home next to Kelsey Grammer's house in Beaver Creek. And so one day he invites the media over there, and I remember this to the day. Chuck Fletcher's over there, Brian Murray, Mike Keenan, like people like that. It was Chuck Fletcher and Mike Keenan would have been there, and Rick Dudley, I believe, and he invites the media over for a dinner as well. And so I walk into the house, and I'm in this just massive, probably 10,000 square foot home. He had somebody working for him, like an assistant or somebody, that hands me a can of Diet Coke because that's what I asked for. I'm in the house for 2 minutes, and I dropped the soda in the middle on one of his wood floors, right in the foyer of his house. Like, you just want to crawl up and just die. And here I'm at this like gazillionaire's house, and immediately just drop a can of soda on his floor. You just couldn't make it up. But it was funny, last night, just talking to all these hockey fans, you start, we're smoking cigars, I'm drinking a scotch, and you start telling old stories, and they started asking me about like people like actually it was my buddy that asked me if Pierre-Marc Bouchard was a good guy, and I started telling this funny story about how Bouchard, when he had his concussions, he'd sit right above me, above the right shoulder, where I'd sit in the press box covering games for the Strib, and he would sit there and he'd be like, "Hey, Roos," and he'd come and I'd turn around and he'd start impersonating the way that I was typing. And it was the funniest thing in the world. It was like Pierre-Marc Bouchard's way of like being like, "Yeah, how do you like it? How do you like being watched and analyzed and it's like, and it's just, it was funny because it made it like me so self-conscious of like typing in front of Bouchard because he's sitting there and looking over my shoulder, and it just it was stories like that had them howling last night, because it really is part of my job is to sit there and critique everything, and here I'm getting critiqued, and I hated every minute of it.
It's awesome.
And then I started telling these stories about the old Sunshine Hockey League, and I still remember this guy. We started talking about Dumb and Dumber. Because we were talking about Dumb and Dumber because I was telling about how Trampled was playing at Stanley Park, and most people would think of Stanley Park from The Shining, but there was scenes in Dumb and Dumber, I believe, from Stanley Hotel, excuse me, not Stanley Park. Stanley Park's in Vancouver, and so the scene where Jeff Daniels puts his tongue on I think it was Jeff Daniels, and puts his tongue on the ice, and his tongue gets stuck. I started telling this story that in the mid '90s, I covered this guy named Don Stone that played for the West Palm Beach Blaze. And he gets this huge gash in his nose. And this guy decided, because he was in such pain, to sink his head and stick it on the ice. And his head is now attached to the ice. And they had to delay the game. They had to delay the game and basically surgically cut out an ice chip to remove his face from the ice. And then they had to delay the game because they essentially create more ice where this guy basically created a hole in it. So it was funny. It was like last night you telling all these old stories of things that have happened. So,
wow.
Anyway,
that's an unusual one. All right, we're going to get to hockey. I do want to thank Scott Dayton and Twill in the Edina Galleria. TWILL on Instagram. TwillMN.com is the website. I bought a sport jacket I've been wearing a lot this fall that is beautiful. And not only is it a beautiful sport jacket, but it actually has a zip-in liner too, so you can wear it like as a winter coat, as a warmer coat. Or you can take it out and you can't tell that there's a zipper in there. It just looks great with everything. So they have so much cool stuff. I think that's a Stenstrom's product, which I have about 8 pieces of right now. Twill in the Edina Galleria.
I'm here with my wife, Stacy. We went to Twill in the Edina Galleria the other day. We saw Scott Dayton, and I bought the nicest sport jacket I've ever owned, the most comfortable pants I've ever owned. They're Brax. A nice pair of loafers that I can wear to the ballpark. I think they're called Tracks. And I bought a bunch of Stenstrom short sleeve shirts to go with my Stenstrom nice dress shirts. And, I used to wear just disposable clothes. Now when I buy something, I buy it at Twill. I know it's going to last me the rest of my life and it's going to be comfortable.
And on top of that, it's not just the best stuff you've ever had, but it's really everyday things that you can wear and that will fit all occasions.
Yeah, I've worn the Stenstrom short sleeve shirts every day this week. When I dress up or even just want to look nice at a game or a Lynx game or something, I wear the Stenstrom dress shirts. But really, the Brax pants are the most comfortable I've ever worn. They are more comfortable than jeans. I never thought I'd have anything more comfortable than a broken-in pair of jeans.
And he keeps saying that, Scott, so thank you very much.
Twill in the Edina Galleria, TwillMN.com, Twill on Instagram.
All right. Let's hit some Twitter questions. We are going to try to get to a lot of them today. Liam C. Hypothetically, if Fenton doesn't make it out of this season, who are some potential and up-and-coming GMs the Wild could target? Wow, we're already there, Michael.
Well, I mean, God, yeah. Let's get there first.
Yeah, let's get there.
But it is, God, man, it's funny that question came up because I got the Wild schedule in front of me, and I was kind of looking at starting to plan trips. And again, it's like you look at the start of their season.
I know.
13 of 18 games on the road.
Ugh.
It's like, last year that might have been a good thing because of how dismal they were at home, and it seemed like they could only win on the road. But man, what a difficult start to their season, and you just worry if they struggle out of the gate, if you're ever going to be able to catch up. And then all of a sudden with Fenton in a precarious position and Bruce in the last year of his deal, you do start to, that question is not one that's escaped me, let's put it that way, that I haven't thought about. But up and coming GMs, I mean, if you're Craig Leopold at that point, you might want to go back to an experienced GM.
Yep.
But up and coming guys would be a couple of the same people that maybe interviewed for the job last time. Tom Fitzgerald was a finalist. Obviously, Billy Guerin was up for the job. It's funny, the Wild interviewed Julian Brisebois too, and he's now the Tampa GM. There were a couple of those type of guys out there. There's a long-time assistant still out there. Obviously Mike Modano starts in the business side of the organization come the fall. And I would, knowing Mike the way that I do, which is pretty well, my guess is that eventually he wants to transition into hockey ops in some capacity. And so, you always have him there. I think that'd be, to give somebody that's never done that though, a job right out of the gate, that's very rarely works. So, yeah, I think we're getting ahead of ourselves.
But you gave a good answer. From Johnson from Wisconsin, our friend, I waited at Denver Biscuit Company for hours, didn't see Russo. Tried to stalk you at Red Rocks, didn't see Russo. Serious hockey question, though. With Trouba getting $8 million over 7 years, does that price the Wild out of the Spurgeon market?
Great question. And sorry, I didn't see it at Red Rocks. I did see a lot of Wild fans that came up to me and were very kind. A couple that begged me to get them backstage. Unfortunately, getting backstage at Red Rocks is like trying to get into the Federal Reserve. So
Yeah.
so I couldn't help.
By the way, you got me into the Federal Reserve, though.
Yeah, that's true. I did get you into the Federal Reserve. Yeah. We took a tour of the Federal Reserve. Actually, that's funny. All right, maybe it's harder. Trouba getting. I mean, it's. I wouldn't say it prices them out, but it's gonna. As I said on the last podcast, to me, first of all, if I were a GM, I would rather have Jared Spurgeon than Jacob Trouba. That's just me. Maybe like everybody in the league. We always say that you really have to watch Spurgeon on an everyday basis to really understand how good this guy is. Maybe it's the same way with Trouba, and I don't get to see that. But I just think that the world of Spurgeon, and I'm not saying that he's going to be an $8 million hockey player with the Wild, but if the Wild come to him with the Ryan Ellis $6.25 million deal, let me just promise you, Eustace King will laugh and hang up. This thing is going to have to start with 7, and that Trouba contract absolutely ups the ante. And as I've written a gazillion times here, next summer, there's everybody from, entering the last year of their deals, from Pietrangelo to Torrey Krug to Brody to Barry. There's a lot of great defensemen. So this market's going to go up. And this is why I don't know if it's just inexperience from a GM standpoint, is that I just think I would have gotten so far ahead of Spurgeon, because now by waiting, the market has already started to shift. And this is going to be an expensive contract. And I do think that Jared Spurgeon is going to play hardball. I don't think that he's just going to stay here for the right financial package. As I've written and as Jared has said, he wants to know the future vision of this team and how they're going to win. And Paul's going to have to convince him of that before Jared even thinks about signing on the dotted line. And so this is definitely that Trouba deal. I cannot imagine that when Paul Fenton saw the numbers that he was too pleased. Let's put it that way. And it's funny, you look back now, I'm in the same hotel in Breckenridge that last year they signed Matt Dumba to. The deal at 6 year at 5 years at times 6. And remember how Wild fans were going crazy about that contract. Well, talk about a steal right now. Matt Dumba at $6 million. And that's the way this market changes so quickly. And so now all of a sudden, as Johnson from Wisconsin says, again, pricing out might be the wrong term, but without a doubt, if the Wild had, or if Paul Fenton had in his mind that he was going to get Jared Spurgeon at something in the 6.5 range, I would be beyond shocked at this point. Jared Spurgeon would have to essentially override his agent and say, all right, I'll just sign it, for him to get something that low at this point. I got to think that Trouba contract is going to make Eustace King now shoot for the stars.
Fixologyrepair.com, downtown Minneapolis in the Skyway, downtown St. Paul in the Skyway, new location between Town Square and Wells Fargo Place in the Skyway. And at the Mall of America, the big shop where they have tons of watches and everything else.
There are some things in life that you just can't live without. Now, whether it's a special piece of jewelry, a watch, or even your smartphone, you want it in working condition. At Fixology Repair, we are committed to restoring your pieces so that everything works or fits the way it ought to. Watch servicing, chain repair, and broken screen replacements are just a few of the services that we offer at our 2 locations, Mall of America and the Skyway in downtown Minneapolis. Please visit us at fixologyrepair.com or at fixologymn on Twitter to learn more. Mention this ad and get a 10% discount on our services.
From Kyle Bondstrom, any new rumors, or is this the team going into next year, and why hasn't Gardner signed yet?
Well, I mean, Gardner hasn't signed yet because, I mean, there's a gazillion reasons why Gardner hasn't signed. I think he was looking for a long-term deal at big money. He's coming off of, a back injury where he didn't have surgery. So I think that even though that MRI shows that he's healed really well, and that is an absolute fact, I do think that some people will get concerned when you don't have surgery because they look at Zach Parise, who tried to rehab naturally and basically delayed the inevitable, where eventually his back gave out and he needed surgery. And Gardner has very similar, very almost identical injury to what Zach had, that he eventually needed the discectomy. I do think that Gardner had a couple options that he turned down. I think that there were a couple places that he was identifying that he hoped to sign with that didn't sign him. And my sense now is that Gardner has a deal that is pretty much a handshake type of contract right now, which means nothing. And that team needs to make a trade. That's just reading the tea leaves, doing some intel on that. I do think that Jake, in his mind, knows where he's probably going, but that team can't sign him yet until they trade probably a high-priced defenseman. And that's not easy this time in the summer. So that's why it's like, even though Jake might feel confident that he's going there, I got to think there's uneasy feelings, because if they can't afford him and you can't make a trade, then they can't afford him. So we'll see. If all of a sudden you see a team here in the next little bit trade a high-priced defenseman out of the blue, it would not be shocking if Gardner is going to that team. In terms of is this the team going into next year? I'm just going with what Paul Fenton said, at his July 1st presser, is that he's comfortable with this team and that most likely that this is the team. Now, that doesn't preclude him from trying to make trades. I'm sure he's checked in on a bunch of things. But right now, as we've seen, not just with the Paul Fenton last summer, but throughout the league, there's very few trades after July 1st in the NHL. Very few. It almost never happens. And in August, these GMs go on vacation. I mean, Paul, you cannot get a GM to even usually email you back in the month of August. They are gone. They leave the country. They turn their phones off. They go to everything from the Orient to the Bahamas. I've seen it all the last 4 or 5 summers. And so it's just very hard before training camp to make any moves. So I do genuinely believe that this will be the team to start the year. But there's no doubt that Paul is at least continuing to try to talk to teams about trades.
Tony Hoagland, Hoaglund. He handles my insurance. He handles Michael's insurance. We just moved in a new house, and he helped us with that. He also provides financial services.
Hey, Minnesota sports fans. This is your local State Farm agent, Tony Hoagland. I need you all to ask yourselves this question. If you're in an at-fault car accident and you are sued for $700,000, how much of that $700,000 will my current insurance company pay? If you are unsure or can't answer all $700,000, you need to give us a call. State Farm has been #1 in car insurance since World War II and #1 in homeowners insurance since 1964. For a no-obligation review of your current policies, call us at 763-421-4900 or check out our website at www.champlininsurance.com.
Here's an interesting one. Darren Walker, former NHL GM in Minnesota, and Brian Burke, who you know well, and I covered a little bit in the Olympics, said on Toronto radio this week that it was always his dream to return home and run the Wild. How cool would that be? That would rock the state of Twin Cities media coverage, but Burke does say he's retired.
Yeah, I mean, this has been something for years. When Chuck Fletcher was up for the job, Craig Leopold at least called in on Brian Burke, even before that, actually. So, I think at this stage it's probably unlikely, but it would be fun as that was the person that tweeted that question alluded to. It would be fun from a media perspective. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, he's a blast. From Sean Phillip, is Dumba coming back this year fully healthy?
Yeah, I mean, he better. But again, this was a major injury, and what's he going to look like right off the hop? Is he going to have the same snap on that shot? Is he going to go into corners and be willing to take hits? I mean, this was a major injury, a long rehab, and psychologically, it's funny. I had coffee with Zach Parisi the other day, and he talked about how just instrumental it would be for Dumba to come back and be on top of his game, because if you remember, 10 of their 11 shutouts last year came after Dumba got hurt. The Wild were a top 12 team offensively with Matt Dumba, and they were dead last without Matt Dumba. So it's imperative that he comes back and is the same Matt Dumba, but to ask him, that's easier said than done. And for all of us to just expect him to be the same player that had 12 goals in 35 games or whatever it was at the time of his injury, I think is probably unrealistic, and there might need to be some patience there.
From Jacob Burkhart, can you talk about the David Clarkson trade? Because I'm still confused on how that's a legal thing you can do. There's going to be a lockout, isn't there?
Yeah. Well, I mean, regardless of that's going to be a loophole that's going to have to be tightened up. I mean, it is insane that this is allowed, and this was just asking for it. When the league started to allow all these teams to start trading dead money to circumvent the cap, but by the way, on another subject, attack teams like the Wild that do things legally and then hit them with cap recapture penalties and Parisi and Suter for allegedly circumventing the cap is another story. But they allowed all this happen. I mean, they allowed Chris Pronger to be traded while he was working for the league. I mean, it's insane, the stuff that they allowed. So in this case, and not to get into the intricacies, and I will say I haven't studied up on it totally, but the way that I understand it here is that David Clarkson's contract, he was originally, he's been hurt for 2 or 3 years now. He's got a major back injury. He was traded, his contract was essentially traded to the Columbus Blue Jackets originally for Nathan Horton, another guy that was effectively retired. And all this was so they could both use teams to go on LTIR, long-term injury reserve, to spend above the cap. Well, then what happened is that David Clarkson contract went to Vegas. Well, Vegas is now sitting there, and they're trying to get under the cap. So what they did is they traded the David Clarkson contract to the most cap-strapped team in the league, the Maple Leafs, who's trying to get Marner done, for along with a draft pick for a backup goalie. Well, now everybody's like, what the heck are you doing? How can the team that's trying to shed money so they can re-sign Mitch Marner now take Clarkson back? Well, what they're going to do is they're going to put Clarkson on LTIR. They already have Horton on LTIR. What LTIR allows you to do is to allow you to spend over that money above the cap. So in a genius move, the Maple Leafs front office has essentially found a loophole. This is my opinion, but they found a loophole that has now created technically $10.5 million of cap space. Now, the thing with LTIR is that if you put a guy on LTIR, when he comes back, you got to get back within the salary cap rules. So you have to become all of a sudden cap compliant again. Well, these guys aren't going to play. So they have given themselves essentially $10.5 million of cap space to re-sign Marner. This is just my opinion that that's what they're doing. And so the interesting thing here is what this might tell us is that Marner will not be able to sign with them until opening night or around opening night, because you can't technically create that cap space until they're put on LTIR opening night, but the day before. So there's a great chance that the Maple Leafs, in a genius move here, figured out a way to re-sign Mitch Marner. And to get to Jacob Burkhart's question, he's confused on how this is legal. It shouldn't be legal. If you're going to have a hard salary cap, you shouldn't essentially give this team the ability to now spend over the cap or essentially have a luxury tax. I mean, they basically just turned this into baseball, and they're not going to be punished for this because there won't be an overage. They're going to do it completely within the legal limits of the collective bargaining agreement. And so how this is allowed is just beyond me. And, whether or not that's going to cause a lockout, as Jacob asked, I don't know, but it's definitely something I got to think now is going to be something that Bill Daly's, when he writes the new CBA with Donald Fair, he's going to have to button that up, because it just doesn't seem like it's right that they are able to do this.
There are 2 ways you can eat good food and support the Russo-Souhan Show and TalkNorth.com. One is go to TinShedMN.com. Check out what Tin Shed has to offer, including lunch deals, kids eating free, happy hours, everything else. Also, you get to see a photo of Michael Russo's face right there on the website. It's very exciting. TinShedMN.com. Also, BiteSquad.com. Use a promo code TalkNorth to get your first delivery fee waived. After that, just use it because it's a great service. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, anywhere you are, avoiding lines, weather, traffic, parking, everything else. You'll get restaurant quality food in your home without having to do dishes or anything else. Check it out. BiteSquad.com, BiteSquad, the app. Let's see. The next question was,
how come we don't see Jim Souhan's face on their website?
Because you're the star. I'm the facilitator. You're the star. You are, let's see, who are you? You're marrying Gabrick, and I am
Alex Henry.
Alex Henry. I'm not good enough to be Alex Henry, but I'll take the compliment.
How about that Alex Henry? I still, to this day, it's a great trivia question. Who was the first captain after the lockout in the 2005-06 season? Remember when they had the monthly captains?
Yep.
It was Alex Henry.
Alex Henry. Wow.
It's crazy, huh?
That's awesome. From good memory, by the way. But from B. Steph 12, how's Suter's ankle? Does the team expect any improvement from him, or will he only, in quotation marks, be an all-star, not a Norris contender from now on? Hashtag stop the hate.
I was wondering where he was going with that, so I now sense the sarcasm.
Mm-hmm.
When I haven't talked to Suter since probably June 29th or 30th, but I talked to him for a long time that one of those days, and he was feeling great at the time. But I was talking to him for other reasons. Didn't talk to him really about his health, but I know he's working out and he's coming in ready to play.
All right, cool. From North Star Fan for Life, what's the number one question you haven't been asked about the Wild yet this offseason?
That I haven't been asked?
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I thought I thought that it was going to ask about. I haven't been a lot of asked about Kaprizov lately, so I haven't been asked that a lot. Boy, that was a jumble of words, huh?
From Justin Caesar wears pants sometimes. How does a fan reconcile wanting a GM to make a trade with not trusting the GM to make a good trade?
Go to the Alps and forget about life.
From our friend MJ, what summer sports teams and leagues do you follow? And when is the wiffle ball extravaganza this summer? And will you post the beauty league teams and honorary coaches for Mary?
What sports teams or leagues do I cover? I mean, I always cover baseball. I mean, follow baseball during the off season, and have definitely been paying attention to the Twins lately. But that's probably it. I mean, I'm really. I mean, I know this sounds awful, but I don't have a favorite team of any sport. I haven't since I was a kid. I don't know if it's just the sports radar in me or what, but I am one of those people. I have no fandom to any team. So that's just when I was a kid, I was a diehard Expos fan, diehard Bulls fan, diehard Bears and Raiders fan. Not even any of the New York teams, and I grew up there. And then I was an Islander fan. And then I guess one New York team. Wiffle ball tournament's August 10th, I believe. I'm not partaking, but I am going. And the Beauty League, I'll start covering those games next month.
From Mark, do the Wild have the assets to acquire a present or prospect number one center? If they do, who's potentially available?
I don't know. I mean, in the history of this organization, have they acquired a number one center? You
No.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just it's unbelievable. I was talking to Parisi the other day, and we were talking about the team, and I'm doing a big story for his birthday. His birthday's in 2 days, and I'm doing kind of a big story of looking ahead and looking behind, and we were talking about how like when year 2 and 3 of them making the playoffs after the Parisi Suter contracts, he was convinced that they were just a great center away from being a cup contender. And just it's never happened, and now they've sort of regressed here the last couple of years to now the point that he's alarmed that they're potentially in a rebuilding situation, and so do the Wild have those assets? They're not exactly full of what we would consider blue chip prospects right now to go get that guy. And usually teams aren't looking to just trade that guy away. So I'm sure that Paul Fenn has identified the need. And Paul Fenn himself says, yeah, we don't have a number one center, but we have a lot of 2s and 3s. Well, that doesn't win you a cup. It just doesn't. And he knows that. So I'm sure that's going to be something that he's going to try to pursue here for the rest of his time in Minnesota. And we'll see if it happens. But, it's hard to. His other issue is to rebuild that prospect pool and not trade away first and second round picks. And to do that, now you're in a quandary because usually those are the type of things that you use as the chips to go get the top players. And so he's trying to do 2 things at once, and it's very, very difficult from a GM standpoint.
2 more questions. Thanks to all of our sponsors, listeners, and people who come out to Tin Shed July 31st, 7 p.m. Come out and say hello. From Carson, who do you see having the most points on this year's Wild team?
I don't know.
All right.
I mean, if Parisi's healthy,
he'll do it.
Yeah. I mean, especially if he's going to be playing with Zuccarello.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously Zucker's going to be very, very motivated this year to have a bounce back year. Fiala is, again, looking at his social media, it just seems to be working out like the pro that he is this offseason to try to break out here, and they need him to break out. And somebody recently, I believe at the Athletic actually did top 10 players in the NHL to potentially break out this season. Donato and Fiala were 2 of his 10, and the Wild need it. As we've said often, we know what they have in the veterans. We know what they have in Suter and Spurgeon. We know what they have in Parisi, Stahl, Koivu. Zucker, these guys. For this team to get to where the Wild want themselves to go, and for fans to see them go, they need the Cunnins, the Greenways, the X, the Donatos, the Fialas to now take the next step in their careers, to start producing, to not just take periphery roles on this team. And if it doesn't happen, this will be a disappointing season for the Wild. If it does happen, I'm not saying, again, that to get to that person's question that Fiala and Donato are going to lead them in points, but they need these guys to absolutely break out this season.
Last question. Thanks for all the good Twitter questions from Cody Kobernick. In a situation where Spurgeon and Zucker are both traded, what kind of return would benefit the Wild's retool?
Well, I mean, again, what you're calling a retool, to me, if you're going to trade these guys, you need to load up on actual players that can play. They are not going full rebuild. They're not going to get picks and prospects for them. They're going to want guys that could play. And to me, that is, if you're going to trade Spurgeon, you've got to trade him to a team that's going to be able to re-sign him at the $7 or $8 million that he's going to want. But then they're going to have to be able to willing to part with a couple big pieces, potentially a goal scorer. But it would be nice to get a number one center. And same thing with Zucker there. I don't think that Paul Fenton was overly enamored with the potential returns that he was getting in a lot of the Jason Zucker trade talks. And now I think it's without a doubt that Zucker's back here next season.
Interesting. Good stuff from Michael. As always, thanks to our producer, Brandon Morton. We'll see you July 31st, 7 o'clock at Tin Shed, tinshedmn.com down in Savage. Have a good summer.
Yep.
Pretty little city built on a hillside. Music in the bars and fire in the sky. We went to the beach and it was covered in ice. And I used to call it home. So much coming out, there's nothing going in. I know that you feel like you're never gonna win. Oh, but the world won't forgive a winner.
And now, an ad from Dad.
All right, save money on car insurance when you bundle home and auto with Progressive. Can I take these off? All right. What is this? This looks good. Wow, that's well made. Where did you get this? I'm talking to you with the hair. Yeah, where did you get this? It's good stuff. That's solid. That's not veneer, that's solid stuff.
Progressive can't save you from becoming your parents, but we can save you money when you bundle home and auto. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Discounts not available in all states or situations.
Security threats are everywhere. But with Xfinity XFi, you're notified of threats to your in-home Wi-Fi network, so all your connected devices are protected. That's simple, easy, awesome. Switch to Xfinity today and get a great offer. You'll get fast speeds and the best in-home Wi-Fi experience with Xfinity XFi. Plus, ask about enhanced security for safer browsing and more. Go to Xfinity.com, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit an Xfinity store to switch today. Restrictions apply.